Welcome to my 90-day SAT prep series. Today is day 89 of 90. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to take you through a reading passage, two writing passages, one math no calculator test, and then some math with calculator problems. So the reason why we're going to do all the sections today is because your SAT is obviously scheduled, hopefully, for day 91. So the reason that I'm doing this and having me go through the problems rather than you is a couple things. Number one, for parts 1, 2, and 3 here, I'll be showing you the pacing that I recommend. So what that means is as I go through my reading passage, I'm going to answer all my questions in 11 minutes or less. Okay, so as I go through, you'll be able to see how I look at the reading passage, what I'm looking for, so you'll be able to get a review of the sort of strategies that I'm using on the reading section, as well as the pacing, and you can get comfortable. Also, you're not going to be too mentally taxed by doing all of these passages. Like if you were to do them yourself, that'd be a lot of mental fatigue going into your SAT on day 91. So that's why I'll be doing these as well. Okay, after that, you'll see me do two writing passages. Once again, I'll complete both of those in a total of 14 minutes or less. What that means is that's an average then of 7 minutes or less per passage, which would have me completing the SAT writing section in right around 28 minutes, which, as you know, is in that ideal range of answering all your questions in anywhere from 25 minutes to 30 minutes. So once again, right there, I'll be right down the middle of that comfortable range. So you'll see good pacing there, as well as strategies you can use for the SAT writing section. So you'll be able to see my insights on that as well as someone who scored perfectly on the writing section on back-to-back SATs. After that, you'll see me go through the math no calculator test of a SAT practice test, and I'll complete that in 15 minutes or less, right? Now, obviously, or I think it might be 17 minutes, but either way, you know that the good pacing range is anywhere from 15 minutes to 17 minutes, having all your questions answered. So I'll be getting that done in 15 minutes. I believe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's 17, but pretty confident it's 15 minutes. So yeah, at worst 17 minutes or less, but I'm pretty sure it's 15 minutes. So once again, on the math no calculator test, then you'll be able to see my pacing because I'll follow that order of questions that I recommend on that as well. So you'll be able to get a refresher on the order of questions that you should be going through for the math no calculator test, and you'll also be able to see how I'm getting my correct answer efficiently. So tips and tricks and things like that. Then after that, we're just going to review some math with calculator problems, right? So after going through 1 through 3, you'll be seeing me do a lot with the pacing, moving decently quick there, but also providing good answer explanations, tips, tricks, and strategies. Then we'll slow it down a little bit with the math with calculator problems, just kind of taking those a bit easier. That way you can kind of wind down, not get too stressed out before you take the SAT on day 91. So the good thing here is you're not going to get too mentally fatigued since you'll really just be kind of reviewing and watching me do things, seeing how I look for things, making sure you understand what to look for, pacing, things like that. So the mental fatigue is not going to be too much today. And then going into tomorrow is really going to be a lot of reviewing things. Okay, so you're going to go through a review of your pacing, the math formulas and equations. I'll take you through a review on that. I'll review grammar rules with you, and then after that I'll go through and I'll do a little bit of these reading passages. I'll do one reading passage, I'll do one writing passage, I'll go over a few math no calculator problems, I'll go over a few math with calculator problems, and what that's going to do is that's going to help you prep then for your SAT on day 91. So it's really going to cover most of the stuff that you want to know and go over the day before you take your SAT. So just one thing to keep in mind is that day 89, other than this intro, is going to be the same as day 13 from my 14-day SAT prep course, and day 90 is going to be the same as day 14 from my 14-day SAT prep course. The reason behind that is I completed that 14-day SAT prep course before I did day 89 and day 90, and what I did with day 13 and day 14 is I really broke down and did a lot of what I really think you should be doing 2 days before your SAT and then 1 day before your SAT. So because I spent so much time on those two videos, I wanted to put them as the same as day 89 and 90 because there was a lot of thought and a lot of reasoning and logic behind what I put in those two, and I wanted to make sure that when I did day 89 and 90, I just did the same video because I think that they were pretty good videos. I think they did a good job, especially day 14. I think day 14 does a really good job of helping you review that day before you do take the SAT, and I think day 13 does a good job of being that 2 days before and getting that good review. So just one thing to keep in mind is that those will be the same videos. So if you watch the 14-day, obviously day 13 and day 14, you see what they're going to equal here. But if you're taking the 90-day, obviously you haven't seen those yet, and they're going to be good to help you prep. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So just any mention that you hear to the 14-day SAT prep series or anything like that, just understand that that's why, is because these two videos are the same as day 13 and day 14 other than this intro here. So any mention to the 14-day one, anything, if I say something as far as we covered this, or I don't know if I've covered this, it's probably been covered in the 90-day if I said I didn't cover it in the 14, because the 90-day has a ton of content in it. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with day 89 of 90, right, which is equivalent to obviously day 13's video. So let's go ahead and get started. Good luck on the SAT, and let's go ahead and get going with this. Questions 42 to 52 are based on the following passage in supplementary material. This passage is adopted from Caroline Gramlin, source of mysterious medieval eruption identified, copyright 2013 by the American Association for the Advancement of Science. About 750 years ago, a powerful volcano erupted somewhere on Earth, kicking off a centuries-long cold snap known as the Little Ice Age. Identifying the volcano responsible has been tricky. That a powerful volcano erupted somewhere in the world sometime in the Middle Ages is written in the polar ice cores in the forms of layers of sulfate deposits and tiny shards of volcanic glass. These cores suggest that the amount of sulfur the mystery volcano sent into the stratosphere put it firmly among the ranks of the strongest climate-perturbing eruptions of the current geological epoch, the Holocene, a period that stretches from 10,000 years ago to the present. A haze of stratospheric sulfur cools the climate by reflecting solar energy back into space. In 2012, a team of scientists led by geochemist Gifford Miller strengthened the link between the mystery eruption and the onset of the Little Ice Age by using radiocarbon dating of dead plant material from beneath ice caps on Baffin Island, Iceland, as well as ice and sediment core data to determine that the cold summers and ice growth began abruptly between 1275 and 1300 CE and became intensified between 1430 and 1445 CE. Such a sudden onset pointed to a huge volcanic eruption, injecting sulfur into the stratosphere and starting the cooling. Subsequent unusually large and frequent eruptions of other volcanoes, as well as sea ice, ocean feedbacks, persisting long after the aerosols have been removed from the atmosphere, may have prolonged the cooling through the 1700s. Volcanologist Frank Levine and colleagues now think they've identified the volcano in question, Indonesia's Samalas. One line of evidence they note is historical records. According to the Babad Lombok, records of the island written on palm leaves and Old Javanese, Samalas erupted catastrophically before the end of the 13th century, devastating surrounding villages, including Lombok's capital at the time, Pamatan, with ash and fast-moving sweeps of hot rock and glass called pyroclastic flows. The researchers then began to reconstruct the formation of the large 800-meter deep caldera, a basin-shaped volcanic crater that now sits atop a volcano. They examined 130 outcrops on the flanks of the volcano, exposing sequences of pumice ash hardened into rock and other pyroclastic material. The volume of the ash deposited and the estimated height of the eruption plume, 43 kilometers above sea level, put the eruption's magnitude at a minimum of 7 on the volcanic explosivity index, which has a scale of 1 to 8, making it one of the largest known in the Holocene. The team also performed radiocarbon analysis on the carbonized tree trunks and branches buried within the pyroclastic deposits to confirm the date of the eruption. It could not, they concluded, have happened before 1257 and certainly happened in the 13th century. It's not a total surprise that an Indonesian volcano might be the source of the eruption, Miller says. An equatorial eruption is more consistent with the apparent climate impacts, and he adds, with sulfate appearing in both polar ice caps, Arctic and Antarctic, there is strong consensus that this also supports an equatorial source. Another possible candidate, both in terms of timing and geographic location, is Ecuador's Quilotila, estimated to have last erupted between 1147 and 1320 CE. But when Levine's team examined shards of volcanic glass from this volcano, they found that they didn't match the chemical composition of the glass found in polar ice cores, whereas Samala glass is a much closer match. That, they suggest, further strengthens the case that Samala was responsible for the medieval year without summer in 1258 CE. Alright, at this point we can go ahead and get into our questions. So we've got a figure, which will probably be asked at the end because they almost always are. We have the main purpose of the passage is to do what? Okay, well we know that we start out our passage by discussing this sort of little ice age, and then we get into the cause of that after. Okay, so the main purpose in this is really to describe the evidence that is linking the volcano Samalas to the little ice age, right? The little ice age is what we introduce, but then at the end we really start talking about the cause of it, which we know is the volcano Samalas, or at least that's what the evidence is pointing to. We aren't describing periods in Earth's recent geological history. That's not the whole point of this. We want to keep in mind we're looking for the main purpose. Explaining the methods scientists use in radiocarbon analysis, we aren't explaining those methods. Explaining how volcanic glass forms during volcanic eruptions, we do not do that either. So our answer is C for 42. All right, 43, over the course of the passage, the focus shifts from what? Well, as I said in part 1, we shift from describing this record event, right, this little ice age, to its likely cause. So our answer there would be B. Okay, we start by introducing this little ice age period, and then we get into its cause being those Samalas volcanoes. Okay, we're not starting with a criticism, so that's wrong. We're not starting with the use of ice core samples to a new method. We're not doing that. We're not starting with the use of radiocarbon dating either. We're starting with that description of the little ice age and then moving on to its cause. All right, now we got 44, so we have which choice is providing the best evidence for that previous answer. So we're going to look for where we start to make that transition from description of the little ice age to its cause. I believe that it's going to be right around here. Let me take a look. So we have in 2012, this is kind of where we started to make this transition. I'm going to put it in green. So in 2012, a team of scientists led by geochemist Gifford Miller strengthened the link between the mystery eruption. Okay, so we're linking the mystery eruption and the onset of the little ice age. So that's its cause, right? The mystery eruption is its cause, and our event is the little ice age. So our evidence then should be from, looks like 17 to right around wherever the sentence ends, which is in 24, but we might not end up going all the way there. So anything that's really got 17 to 19 for sure in it would be what I'm looking at for my evidence there. So I see I do go all the way to 25 because that's the end of my sentence. My answer there would be A for number 44. All right, now we got question 45. So we've got the author uses the phrase is written in line 6, most likely to do what? Well, let's go take a look at the word in written in line 6. So we have, I believe it was talking about the answers are written in, right? We have that a powerful volcano erupted somewhere in the world sometime in the Middle Ages is written in polar ice cores, okay, or is evident in polar ice cores is what I'm looking at there. It's showing that the evidence there is in those polar ice cores. So let's look for an answer that has that. So we have option C underscores the sense of importance that they have regarding their work. That's incorrect. D, reinforcing the idea that the evidence is there and can be interpreted by scientists. That will for sure be our answer, right? Us saying that the evidence is written in something is telling us that the evidence is both there and that it can be interpreted by scientists to come to a conclusion. So our answer there would have to be D. All right, now we got 45. We have, where does the author indicate the medieval volcanic eruption was probably located? Okay, we say this one pretty explicitly. We say that it's near the equator in Indonesia. I see my next question is evidence, so I can also go ahead and get the evidence for you on that one. Okay, we know that our evidence for where it says near the equator in Indonesia, we're just going to look for where it says that because it pretty much explicitly says that. We see that it's not a total surprise an Indonesian volcano might be the source of the eruption, and equatorial eruption is more consistent with the apparent climate impacts. So I see that that's going to be from 61 then to 64. Okay, so I'm going to find evidence, see if that's an option. Okay, I see that that is a choice, so my answer there would be D because that would be showing that it happened near the equator in Indonesia. That one right there is pretty explicit. All right, now we have, as used in line 68, the phrase another possible candidate implies what? Well, let's go take a look at line 68, find some context. So we have appearing in both polar ice caps, Arctic and Antarctic. There's a strong consensus that this also supports an equatorial source. Another possible candidate, both in terms of timing and geographic location, is Ecuador's Kilo Tias. This is another possible candidate for the cause of the little ice age. So it's really showing that there are, it's not for sure known which one caused it, what I would say we're really looking at here. So let's take a look through our options. We have A, powerful volcanic eruptions occur frequently. No, that's not really the main point. The main point is that we know that there's other options for what caused this. We have B, the effects of volcanic eruptions can last for centuries, also incorrect. C, scientists know of other volcanoes that erupted during the Middle Ages. Yes, those other volcanoes erupting during the Middle Ages, like we talk about as in that other possible candidate, is showing that there's some other volcano that could have caused this little ice age. So it's showing that there are others that erupted during those Middle Ages. Other volcanoes have calderas that are very large. No, that would be if you were to focus too narrow on the calderas part of this passage. All right, now we got which choice best supports the claim that Kiotia was not responsible for the ice age. Okay, the big thing that sticks out to me right here is the word closer match, so I'm going to start there in 71 to 75 because that's probably telling me that there's another volcano that is at a closer match, which I believe is what it says. We have, but when Levine's team examined shards of volcanic glass from this volcano, they found they didn't match the chemical composition of the glass found in polar ice cores, whereas the Samalas glass is a much closer match. I see that that's from, it looks like 71 down to 75, it looks like right here. So down 71 to 75. Find an answer choice that has that. So we got 71 to 75, that's going to be D for 49. All right, so now at this point we've got question 50. According to the data in the figure, the greatest below average temperature variation occurred around what year? Well, let's go take a look for that greatest below average temperature variation. I see that occurs here. That's my greatest decrease, or the lowest point. That's going to be at 16, it looks like 16, just before 1700, so right around 1670-ish is what I'd be looking at as an answer choice there. I see that I got 1675, so my answer would be C for number 50. All right, at this point we go and move on to number 51. 51 says the passage and the figure are in agreement that the onset of the little ice age began when. Okay, well, let's take a look at this figure. So we have the onset of the little ice age. We see that that's going to really start right around here, right? If we go down, that's where we move from that medieval warm period into this little ice age over here. So that's going to be right around just before 1400. It's right around 1350 to 1400 is what I'd be looking at there. So let's take a look. We've got option A around 1150. No, just before 1300. I mean, it looks like according to the figure that it would be a little bit closer to that 1350 mark, but also, you know, we see that we do start that decline just before 1300 as well. So starting that decline just before 1300, that also would work. So our answer there should be B, just before 1300. That's a better choice than just before 1500 and around 1650. So our answer would be B for 51. All right, now we got 52. Which statement's best supported by the data in the figure? At this point, we just got to go through our statements, starting with A. So we have the greatest cooling during the Little Ice Age occurred hundreds of years after the temperature peaks of the medieval warm period. Well, let's take a look. We see that our peaks in the medieval warm period occur right around 1200. So we go from right around 1200 to our greatest trough, or our greatest decline, which is right around 1650. So that is hundreds of years after, so therefore my answer would have to be A for number 52, because that is a true statement that's supported by the data presented in the figure. So my answer would be A for 52. All right, so at that point, that takes care of the reading passage for today. Now we're going to go get started with 2 writing passages. So as I go through, I'll basically be treating it like I would if it were the SAT. So I'll be going through same sort of pacing that I would normally do if I were taking the SAT. So following that pacing strategy that I outlined in the SAT writing pacing video, approaching the problems, try to look at what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, right? So really pay attention to how I'm getting to the correct answer, pay attention to how I'm getting rid of wrong answer choices really quickly and getting to that correct answer as fast as I can, or at least in an efficient manner, right? I still have to give verbal answer explanations, so obviously I could go faster, but I'm giving those verbal answer explanations. So just pay attention to how I'm being efficient on that section, and that should help you out and help you prepare for your SAT. So we got questions 1 through 11 are based on the following passage. Shed some light on the workplace. Studies have shown that employees are happier, healthier, and more productive when they work in an environment. Okay, right here I know this is basically a parallelism question, asking to make sure that I'm maintaining this IER at the end of my words. Now I can't say productive ear because that's not a word obviously, so I do have to say and more productive. So I know my correct answer there would be A, right? We don't want to say comma and they are because then we're repeating they and we don't need to repeat it. We also don't want to say being. We would also have to have an and after healthier anyways, so that's wrong. And then as far as answer choice B versus answer choice A, it looks like the only difference there would be healthy versus healthier. Obviously, we want to say healthier since we said happier here, and we want to maintain that parallelism. So our answer for number 1 then is going to be A. All right, so now we got question 2. When they work in an environment in which temperatures are carefully controlled, we're asked for the most appropriate introduction to the passage. I see up in my title I'm talking about shedding a light on the workplace, but I want to read on some more to kind of see what the main idea of this passage will be before I answer number 2. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have new buildings may be designed with these studies in mind, but many older buildings were not, resulting in spaces that often depend primarily on artificial lighting. While employers may balk at the expense of reconfiguring such buildings to increase the amount of natural light, the investment has been shown to be well worth it in the long run for both employers and employees. Okay, so I'm talking about artificial lighting versus natural light, things like that. So I don't want to talk about temperatures, so A is wrong. B, that affords them adequate amounts of natural light. Yes, we want to talk about that natural light, so B would be our correct answer for 2. All right, so that's A and then B, and then as far as why C and D are wrong, that is thoroughly sealed to prevent energy loss. We're not talking about that. In which they feel comfortable asking for special accommodations, also not talking about that. All right, so now we move on. We got question 3. For one thing, a lack of exposure to natural light has a significant impact on employees' health. A study conducted in 2013 by Northwestern University in Chicago showed that inadequate natural light could result in eye strain, headaches, and fatigue, as well as interference with the body's circadian rhythms. Circadian rhythms, which are controlled by the body's biological clocks. Okay, the bodies that does possess those biological clocks, so we do need to have that apostrophe there. It looks like at this point the writers, hang on, oh, looks like I skipped one on a minute. Okay, let me just quick go answer this one. I accidentally skipped 3. So we have bodies, biological clocks. Obviously, like I said, we're talking about Clocks doesn't own anything. Okay, so clocks can't have that apostrophe at the end, so we can go ahead and get rid of those two. So now it's between bodies in A versus C. We know that bodies in A, we have to have it owning something, right? It has to have that apostrophe, so we know our answer has to be C then. Clocks doesn't own anything, but the bodies do own those biological clocks. So our answer for 4 has to be C. Okay, let's go back and answer 3. Should the writer include workers in offices with windows sleep an average of 46 minutes more per night than workers in offices without windows? Okay, well, we shouldn't add this because we're talking about the body's circadian rhythms, and if we include that right there, right, this sentence right here that I'm circling that we're asked if we should add, if we include that, we're going to disrupt our discussion of these circadian rhythms, right? We want to keep those two sentences together, those two discussions of circadian rhythms together, so we don't want to interrupt them, okay? So our answer would be C, no, because it interrupts the discussion of circadian rhythms. All right, so now we can go and move on. We answered 4 already, so now we got question 5. Employees who feel less than 100% and are sleep deprived are less prone to work at their maximal productivity. One company in California gained a huge boost in its employees' morale when it moved from an artificially lit distribution facility to one with more natural illumination. We're asked for, let's see. Man, it looks like we skipped 5 on accident as well, so I'll have to go back and answer that one. Okay, which choice best supports the statement made in the previous sentence? Well, the best support here, in the previous sentence, we're talking about productivity. So we want to show something that employees who are switching from, or I'm sorry, employers that are now having natural light rather than artificial light see a boost in productivity. So our correct answer there would be B, so a 5% boost in productivity. All right, so let's go back and answer 5 real quick. I accidentally skipped over that one. We have, like any other health problems, these A elements can turn into increased employee absenteeism, which in turn is costly for employers. Okay, so the word is needs to match a number with employee absenteeism, which we would say is singular. Okay, is singular, so that matches our subject singular, verb singular. So 5, our answer there should be A, no change. All right, so now we got question 7. So in context, which best combines the underlined sentences? So we have artificial light sources are also costly aside from lowering worker productivity. They typically constitute anywhere from 25 to 30% of a building's energy use. Okay, well, what we want to do here is we do want to make sure that we're also transitioning from our previous paragraph to our new one. So I do want to just quick take a look at that. I see that we're talking about natural illumination is what we ended ours with, our last paragraph with. We have in context which best combines these underlined sentences. So let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to start with the shortest one and then go to our largest. So we have a 1 here, a 2 here, a 3 here, and a 4 here. So we have option C, typically constituting 25 to 50% of a building's energy use. Artificial light sources lower worker productivity and are costly. Okay, no, because we want to include that lowering of worker productivity that we talked about in that previous paragraph up top, right? The lowering of worker productivity. We want to start with that to connect our previous paragraph to our new one. So lowering worker productivity, we want to connect that. So we want to start with that. Okay, so I want to find an answer that starts with lowering worker productivity. I see C does not. D says artificial lights. Okay, we don't want to start with that. Option A, aside from lowering worker productivity. Okay, that's a good transition from my previous paragraph to my current one. Artificial lights are costly, typically constituting anywhere from 25 to 50% of a business's energy use. Yes, okay, that uses a well-placed modifier, right? It's modifying these artificial light sources, so that works. Grammatically correct. Nothing is inefficient, nothing is repetitive or redundant. A is our correct answer. All right, next up, we've got when a plant in Seattle, Washington was redesigned for more natural light, the company was able to enjoy annual electricity cost reductions of $5,000. Okay, we don't want to say each year because we already said annual, and that means the same thing. So we can go ahead and delete that underlined portion. So our answer there would be D. All right, so now we got question 9. So let's go down to question 9. We have among the possibilities to reconfigure a building's lighting is the installation of full pane windows to allow the greatest degree of sunlight to reach the office interiors. Okay, so we have businesses can install light tubes. Keep in mind I skip over this because I want to find out what my sentence is saying first. So businesses can install light tubes. Okay, that should be which are, not these are, should be comma, which are pipes placed in workplaces to capture and funnel sunlight down into a building's interior. Okay, so correct answer there should be C for number 10. Now as far as our transition from our previous sentence to our current sentence, we're talking about an alternative to those full pane windows is these tubes or these pipes. So that's an alternative to that. So our answer there would be C. So we have 9C, we got 10C. All right, so now we got question 11. Glass walls and dividers can also be used to replace solid walls as a means of distributing. Okay, that's an idiom question. We would say a means of, not a means from, not a means through, and we can't delete it either. Our answer for 11 would be B. All right, now we got our second passage. Let's go ahead and go down to our second passage. We're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit. So we have transforming the American West through food and hospitality. Just as travelers taking road trips today may need to take a break for food or rest at a long highway, settlers traversing the American West by train in the mid-1800s often found themselves in need of refreshment. Okay, that's perfect. We don't need to say oneself or himself because we have multiple people, and we don't say their selves. We would say themselves. Correct answer there is A. All right, so now we got question 13. So we have, however, food available on rail lines was generally of terrible quality. Now we're told for what's providing the most logical introduction to the sentence. So we have Fred Harvey, an English-born entrepreneur. Okay, that's not essential. We want to have a comma there. And then we should get rid of that. So it just says Fred Harvey and then decided to open his own restaurant. So we want to get rid of he. Okay, so we get rid of that. We can't use a colon there. We need to use that comma to complete that non-essential phrase or clause. So our answer would be D for number 14. Decided to open his own restaurant business to serve rail customers. Okay. Now that's to capitalize on the demand for great food. It's not because he lived in New York or New Orleans or because he worked for railroad companies, and we can't delete it either. We need to have an intro to that sentence. Correct intro there would be C, to capitalize on the demand for great food. Okay, so we have beginning in the 1870s, he opened dozens of restaurants and rail stations and rail cars. These Harvey houses, which constitute the first restaurant chain in the United States, were unique. Okay, we know it has to be were unique because were is plural and Harvey houses is plural. So our answer there is going to have to be were unique for there. Okay, we have to maintain that plural. So our answer there would be B for number 15. All right, now we got question 16. The menu was modeled after those of fine restaurants, so the food was leagues beyond the sinister fare. Well, we wouldn't call it the sinister fare, okay, because sinister would imply something like evil. We wouldn't say the icky fare because that's too casual. So we'd have it between surly and abysmal. Now we wouldn't characterize food as surly, but we would characterize food that tastes badly as abysmal. So our correct answer for 16 would be C. All right, so now we've got question 17. His restaurants were immediately successful, but Harvey was not content to follow conventional business practices. At this point, the writer is considering deleting the previous sentence. Should the writer make this change? Well, let's see if our sentence that we just said talks anything or has anything to do with what we talk about in this paragraph. So we have, although women did not traditionally work in restaurants in the 19th century, Harvey decided to try employing women as waitstaff. In 1883, he placed an advertisement seeking educated, well-mannered, articulate women between the ages of 18 and 30. Okay, so one thing that I noticed right off the bat is that we don't want to delete it because him not taking these conventional business practices is introducing the fact that even though women didn't traditionally work in restaurants, Harvey did employ them as waitstaff. Okay, so that's introducing that idea. That's showing that he's not content to follow those conventional business practices, so it's providing a logical introduction to the paragraph. Therefore, we do not want to delete it. Okay, the writer should not make this change. The writer should not delete it. It should be kept. So our answer for 17 there should be C. Okay. We have response to the advertisement was overwhelming, even tremendous. Overwhelming and tremendous basically mean the same thing. I don't want to say both of them. Therefore, my answer is going to have to be answer choice B for number 18. All right, number 18, we got B. Now we're on number 19. So we got Harvey soon replaced the male service at his restaurant with females or with women. Those who were hired as Harvey girls joined an elite group of workers who were expected to complete 30-day training program, follow a strict code of rules and conduct and curfews. In the workplace, women donned identical black and white uniforms and carried out their duties with precision. Not only were such regulations meant to ensure the efficiency of the business and the safety of the workers, but also, okay, we do want to do but also, okay, because we said not only, we would say not only this, but also that. So we want to make sure we have but also. So we can go ahead and get rid of C, we can get rid of D. So we have but also helped or but also helping. Okay, well, we have these regulations were meant to ensure the efficiency of the business and the safety of the workers. So we're looking for, okay, I see I have donned here. I was looking for another verb to help find my tense here. Since I have donned there, I'm going to want to have helped right here. So our answer for, or hang on a minute, hang on. Let me just run through something. I got to check something really quick. So I want to make sure that I'm being grammatically correct as well for number 19. So one thing I need to watch out for is I see I have a comma in the word but here. So I want to make sure that I have to have an independent clause following the word but in order to connect those two with a comma and a fanboy, because it has to be two independent clauses. Now if I say but also helping or but also helped, there's no subject there. And since I have to have a subject, my answer has to be D, because I have to have but they also helped to raise people's generally low opinion of the restaurant industry. So correct answer for 19 actually has to be D, because I need to have a subject for that second independent clause. So I missed that at first, but I did catch that as I started reading through because I noticed that I had that comma paired with that but, which meant I have to have a subject there, and I didn't have a subject there in options A through C, therefore D had to be my correct answer for 19. So you got to watch out for that. All right, so now we've got, in return for the server's work, the position paid quite well for the time, $17.50 a month, plus tips, meals, room and board, laundry service, and travel expenses. For as long as Harvey Houses served rail travelers throughout the mid-20th century, working there was a steady and lucrative position for women, living independently and demonstrating an intense work ethic, comma, that's a dependent introductory clause, and then we have the Harvey girls right there, so that would be what we're looking for after ethic. It should just be a comma, so our answer for 21 should be D. Question 20, where's that at? Okay, it's right here. So which choice most logically follows the previous sentence? Okay, well, we just talked about how women were paid well for the time. Now we have the growth of Harvey's business coincided with the expansion of the Santa Fe Railroad, which served large sections of the American West. Nope, that's not what we want to talk about. Harvey would end up opening dozens of hotels and restaurants over his lucrative career. No, because we're talking about the Harvey girls there. The benefits enabled the Harvey girls to save money and build new and exciting lives for themselves in the so-called Wild West. Yes, that's a great answer. We're continuing our discussion of the Harvey girls because we don't want to be talking about Harvey's business at this point. And then we look at option D. It says the compensation was considered excellent at the time, though it may not seem much like today's standards. We already said that, so that would be repetitive and redundant to say it again. All right, Harvey girls became known as a transformative force in the American West. Okay, at this point, the writer is considering revising the underlined portion to read inspiring books, documentaries, and even a musical. Should we make this addition here? Yes, we should, because it's providing examples of their influence. So it's supporting that claim. So 22, our answer there would be A. So that takes care of the two writing passages. So at this point, I'm going to get started with the math no calculator test. So I'm going to do the whole math no calculator section. It'll take me right around 15 minutes, right? I'll be following that same sort of pacing that I outlined for you and recommended that you follow as well. So you can pay attention to my pacing strategies there. Also pay attention to how I'm getting to my correct answer efficiently. That'll help you as well. So pay attention to the pacing and how I'm solving each problem efficiently. If you can do both those things, then this will definitely be beneficial for you on the SAT. So after the end of that 15 minutes, obviously I would still have 10 minutes if I were taking the math no calculator section. In those 10 minutes, I would go back to any questions I skipped. In this case, I don't skip any, or any questions I was unsure of. Obviously, in this case, once again, no questions I'd be unsure of, but that would be what you would be doing if you were taking the SAT. And then once you have those and you're certain of all your answers at that point, if the SAT was paper pencil, you'd just be going through making sure that your bubble sheet matches your test booklet, or if the SAT is on online, then obviously at that point you skip the step of checking your bubble sheet to your answer sheet and you just start checking as many problems as you can. So with that, let's go and get started with the math no calculator section walkthrough for 15 minutes. Go. All right, Salim wants to purchase tickets from a vendor to watch a tennis match. The vendor charges a one-time service fee for processing the purchase of the tickets. The equation T equals 15N plus 12 represents the total amount T in dollars Salim will pay for N tickets. What does 12 represent in the equation? I see 12 as my intercept, so 12 must be that one-time service fee. So I look at my answers. I see B is the amount of the service fee in dollars. B will be my correct answer for number 1. All right, question 2. A gardener buys two kinds of fertilizers. Fertilizer A contains 60% filler materials by weight, and fertilizer B contains 40% filler materials by weight. Together, the fertilizers bought by the gardener contain a total of 240 pounds of filler material. Which equation models the relationship where X is the number of pounds of fertilizer A and Y is the number of pounds of fertilizer B? Okay, well that means X goes in for A, Y goes in for B, and I see I have 0.6X plus 0.4Y equals 240. You saw me make that equation as I read through my problem, which is what I recommend you do as well. Okay, so my answer for 2 there is going to be B. All right, question 3. What is the sum of complex numbers 2 plus 3i and 4 plus 8i? Okay, we're summing them, so I'm going to add 2 and 4. That's going to give me 6. Next, I'm going to add 8i and 3i. That's going to give me 11i. So I got 6 plus 11i. Answer there is going to be C. All right, question 4. In the equation above, P and T are constants. Which of the following could be the value of P? All right, well, I see I got 4x squared. In order to get 4x squared, I'm going to have 2x times 2x. So a value of P then is going to have to be 2 because it'd be 2x. So therefore, P is going to be 2. Answer for 4 then is going to be A. All right, number 5. Which of the following is the graph of the equation y equals 2x minus 5 in the xy plane? This minus 5 means I'm going to have a negative y-intercept, or a y-intercept below 0. I see I don't have that in A. I can get rid of A. I don't have it in C. I can get rid of C. I have it in B and D. Now, what is my slope? It says that my slope is 2x, which is a positive slope. I see B has a negative slope, so B is wrong. My answer then must be answer choice D. So D will be my answer for 5. All right, question 6 is over, where is question 6? Question 6 down here. If x equals 2/3 y and y equals 18, what's the value of 2x minus 3? Okay, x equals 2/3 y, y is 18. I'm going to plug 18 in for y. 2/3 times 18. 2/3 times 18 is going to give me x equals 12 then. If x is 12, I go 2 times 12 is 24. 24 minus 3 is 21. Answer for 6 must be A. All right, question 7. A bricklayer uses the formula n equals 7LH to estimate the number of bricks n needed to build a wall that's L feet long and H feet high, which the following expresses L. I shouldn't have even read that. I should have looked down here, seen that we had L equals, we're just solving for L. So solving for L, then I'm going to divide each side by 7H. So divide each side by 7H. And I see that L then equals N over 7H. So N over 7H, I see that that's answer choice C. So C will be my answer for 7. All right, question 8 is up here. Okay, we've got a table. Table shows the values for the functions w and t. For which value of x is w of x plus t of x equal to x? Okay, I'm just looking to sum these and get them equal to this. So whatever one is equal is going to be my answer. I see 1, -1 plus -3. That's going to give me -4. That does not equal 1. Option 2, we have 2 equals 3 plus -1. 3 plus -1 is 3 minus 1. That does equal 2, so that is correct. So ask for the value of x. X is going to be 2 then. So B would be my correct answer for number 8. Okay, number 9. We've got if the root of x plus the root of 9 equals 64, what's the value of x? Okay, root 9 is 3, root 64 is 8, so I've got root x plus 3. I'm going to subtract 3 from each side. Now I've got 5 equals square root of x. I know that I'd square each side. 5 squared is 25, so my answer there is going to be C. So C will be my answer for 9. Keep in mind at this point I've reached numbers 1 through 9, so at that point I go down to my free response section, and I'm going to answer 16 through 18. So I'm going to go find that. Okay, that's what I recommended in that pacing video yesterday. If you didn't watch the pacing video yesterday, go watch that. Okay, we have if a to the power of b over 4 equals 16 for positive integers a and b, what's one possible value of b? Okay, well, a could be 16, in which case I'd have 16 to the power of 1, which I would need to have b as 4 then, because 4 over 4 is 1. So possible value for b is going to be 4. Okay, next we go down, we got 17. What value of t is the solution of the equation above? Okay, so we got 2/3 t equals 5 over 2. I'm going to multiply each side by 3 over 2 to solve for t. Okay, that gets rid of that. Multiply by 3 over 2. 5 times 3 gives me 15. 2 times 2 gives me 4. I get 15 over 4. So 15 over 4 there will be my answer. So that's what I'll plug in on my bubble sheet, 15 over 4. All right, next up we've got question 18. Okay, in the figure above, BD is parallel to AE. What is the length of CE? Okay, so I've got right angle there, right angle here. I see that these are similar triangles because they're going to have that same measure there, same measure here. Okay, so similar triangles. What's the value of CE? Okay, that's my hypotenuse. I see I have a 6 here and I have an 8 here. I know that 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64, and then the square root of 100 is 10, so I have a 10 there. Asked for CE. I see I have 6 to 18, so that's multiplying by 3 from my smaller to larger. So I multiply my hypotenuse by 3 then, and that's going to give me my hypotenuse of C to E, or C to E. So 10 times 3 gives me 30. So my answer for 18 is going to be 30. Okay, at that point, I'm going to quick glance at 19 and 20 like I talked about yesterday, see if they're easy or not. Okay, I see 19. 19 looks fairly easy. It's very, very short. How many liters of a 25% solution must be added to 3 liters of a 10% solution to get a 15% saline solution? Okay, so I wrote it out as I read it. That's what I recommend you do as well. X in this case is representing my liters of that 25% saline solution. So now at this point, I go ahead and I just solve for X. So I'm going to do 15 times 3 gives me 45. 15 times X gives me plus 15X. 3 times 0.1 gives me 0.3. Or I'm sorry, this should be 0.15. That should be 0.15. This should be 0.45. And this should be plus 0.15X. Okay, I forgot about that. Since it's 10%, I did 0.1 since I also did 0.25 and 0.1 here. All right, and that should be 0.15. Yep. All right, so at this point, set them equal. 0.25x is there. 0.25x plus 0.3. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and subtract 0.15x from each side to keep that coefficient in front of x positive. 0.25x minus 0.15x gives me 0.1x. I'm going to subtract 0.3 from each side. 0.45 minus 0.3 is going to give me 0.15. At that point, I divide each side by 0.1. Divide by 0.1. 0.15 divided by 0.1 is going to give me 1.5. So 1.5 will be my answer for 19. 1.5. 1.5. And that looks sloppy, so I'm going to rewrite it so you can see it better. 1.5 is my answer there. Okay, now we got question 20. We're going to quick glance at that one as well. We got points A and B lie on a circle with radius 1. Radius 1. An arc AB has length pi over 3. What fraction of the circumference of the circle is the length AB? So AB is pi over 3. We know that that's our arc length. We're asked for the fraction of the circumference is that arc length. Well, our circumference is always going to be our diameter times pi, or 2 times our radius times pi. We know if our radius is 1, our diameter is 2, so that means that our circumference is going to be 2 pi. So we're going to do pi over 3 divided by 2 pi. That's the same as doing pi over 3 times 1 over 2 pi times 1 over 2 pi. We know pi's are going to cancel there, and we're going to have 1 over 3 times 2, which is 1 over 6. So my answer there would be 1 over 6. Okay, at that point, I go back and I answer then 10 through 15. Okay, so this is just like I talked about in my pacing video yesterday. So if you didn't watch that, you need to go watch that before I continue on. Okay, we got Jamie is preparing for a bicycle race. His goal is to bike an average of at least 280 miles per week for 4 weeks. So that 4 weeks, we have to multiply then by that 280 to get the total number of miles that he has to ride over this total of 4 weeks. Okay, so we can put a 4 here, or we could have put the 4 on our other side in the division, right? So put it as the denominator on the other side. So we know that he's biking 240 miles the first week, 310 the second week, and 320 the third week, plus 320. And then it says what can be used to represent the number of miles x Jamie could bicycle on the 4th week then to meet this goal. So we can set it up as his total that he bikes is going to have to then be greater than or equal to that 280 times 4. So let's look for an answer choice that has that. We see that we've got options. Option D has that exactly, actually. So D would be our correct answer there. Another way that it could have been written is we could have taken our 4 from our right side, divided each side by 4, and put this right here over 4. But we see that that is not an answer choice. So we can go ahead and get rid of A, B, and C. Our answer for 10 then has to be D. All right, question 11. The vertex of the parabola in the xy plane above is 0 and C. Which of the following is true about the parabola with the equation y equals negative A x minus b squared plus C? All right, well, I see immediately since my graph is opening up, that means that this a in front of x squared has to be positive, okay? Which means if I have negative a times some x squared, which will be x squared since it's x minus b squared, then that's going to open downward. So I can go ahead and get rid of a because that says open upward. I can get rid of c because it says open upward. So now I'm between b and d. I see that they both have c. The only difference is whether b is positive or negative. So I go up and I take a look. I've got x minus b here. So that minus b is telling me that I'm going to have a positive b for my vertex, okay? So B would be my correct answer there. We know here that this is vertex form, right? This equation right here is vertex form, and we're always going to do x minus whatever our vertex is, okay? So in vertex form, it's always x minus whatever our vertex is squared. So in this case, our vertex then must be B. So our answer then has to be answer choice B. All right, going up, we got question 12. Which of the following is equivalent to 4x squared plus 6x all over 4x plus 2? All right, so what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to find what's equivalent to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide. Okay, so we have 4x plus 2 out. We've got 4x squared plus 6x in that box. Okay, so 4x squared plus 6x. So what times 4x gives me 4x squared? Well, that would be multiplying by x. Okay, so I see all of them have that. Next, I'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to subtract then 4x squared because I multiply this x by that 4x. X times 2 gives me positive 2x. So I have 6x minus 2x. 6x minus 2x is going to give me positive 4x. Now I have to get rid of that positive 4x, so I can go ahead and do plus 1. So I have x plus 1. 1 times 4x is going to give me minus 4x, and then 1 times 2 will give me a positive 2, so I'll have minus 2 then. So I'll have a 0 here. 0 minus 2 then is going to give me negative 2, so I see that my answer then is going to be right here. Okay, that's going to be D for number 12. X plus 1, and then I'm going to have that minus 2 over 4x2 plus 2 as my remainder. So answer for 12 there is going to be D. All right, question 13. In the equation above, t is a constant. If the following has no real solutions, which of the following could be the value of t? Well, to solve for the value of t here, for where there's going to be no real solutions, what we have to do is we have to use that rule of b squared minus 4ac. So we know then if it's going to have no real solutions, it's got to be b squared minus 4ac then has to be negative. Okay, so that means that it's going to have to be less than or equal to 0. So in order for that to be negative, and one moment here, it looks like my clock on my screen just went out, so I'll do my best to go off the time that I have in another part of my screen if I can find it. Okay, I see I've got that time going. All right, so we've got b squared minus 4ac. We know that it's got to be negative then. Well, if b squared minus 4ac has got to be negative, then what we do is we take b, which is negative 4. Now keep in mind this is when it's set equal to 0, so we got to subtract t from each side. So we can go ahead and rewrite this. 2x squared minus 4x minus t has to equal 0. We know b is going to be that negative 4, so we're going to have negative 4 squared gives me 16. 16 minus 4 times a, 4 times, or negative 4 times a, which is 2, gives me minus 8. And now I've got c, which I see is negative t. So that negative t then gets plugged in right here. Say I get negative t there. I go ahead and cancel out my negatives to create a positive. So now I've got positive 8 times t, and that's got to be negative, so we can basically, or equal to, or it does have to be negative, I'm sorry. It can't be equal to 0, I miswrote that. It's got to be negative. So that's got to be negative, so we know that's got to be less than 0. In order for that to be less than 0, that t then is going to have to be 2 or more, okay? Because, or I'm sorry, negative 2 or less. Man, it's got to be negative 2 or less because 8 times negative 2 gives me negative 16, which gives me 0. So it's got to be less than negative 2. It has to be less than negative 2. My only answer that's less than negative 2 is A, so 13, my answer there is going to have to be A. All right, 14. All right, we've got a laundry services buying detergent and fabric softener from its supplier. The supplier will deliver no more than 300 pounds in a shipment. Okay, that means 300 pounds has to be more than however many pounds my shipment is. The detergent weighs 7.35, so 7.35 D for detergent. And each container of fabric softener weighs 6.2 S, so plus 6.2 S gives me my total weight. The service wants to buy at least twice as many containers of detergent, so the number of detergent wants to be at least greater than 2 times the number of fabric softener, so 2S. Let D represent detergent, S represent fabric softener, D and S are non-negative. Which of the following best represents the situation? Okay, I've got to have 300 being greater than or equal to. I see that I've got that equation not in C and not in D because those have the wrong D and S, but I do have it in A and B. Next, I need to have D being greater than or equal to 2S. I see that I have that in A. So my answer there is going to be option A. All right, next we got 15, which of the following is equivalent to a plus b over 2 squared. This one right here, if you remember back to our first equation week, we talked about the equation for this. That's going to be a squared, then plus 2 times b over 2. Okay, those 2 cancel, and I got b, or ab, I'm sorry. That's going to be times a as well. Okay, so we're going to have 1 ab, so it's going to be a squared plus ab then. And then I got b over 2 times b over 2. So that's going to be b over 2 squared, which will give me b squared over 4. So my answer then for 15 is going to have to be answer choice D. So let's just go ahead and find which one matches. We see the only option that matches what we got is D. Okay, so that a times a is going to give me a squared, and then b over 2 times b over 2 is going to be b squared over 4. So that's what gets me right there. And then as far as how I get ab, that's going to be, we're going to have this a times b over 2. That gives me ab over 2, and we're going to have 2 of those since we have to multiply it by itself. So answer there will be D. So that takes care of the math and no calculator section walkthrough. Obviously, in the last 10 minutes, if I were taking the math no calculator section, I'd go through, check any answers I skipped or were unsure of. In this case, there were none that I skipped or were unsure of. So then I would go, if it was paper pencil SAT, I'd be matching test booklet to answer sheet. And then after that point, I would be going through and checking as many problems as I can, starting with the easiest problems. So that's what would go on there if it were the real SAT. And then next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do math problems that are from the math with calculator section. So you can use a calculator on the next few. Keep in mind that sometimes using a calculator can slow you down, so you got to make calls on whether it's easier to do it with a calculator or without a calculator on certain problems, but you do have access to a calculator for these next problems because they are from the math with calculator section. So we're going to go ahead and get into that now. So for today's math with calculator practice, what we're going to do is we're going to go through SAT practice test 8, just a few of the problems, and as I go through, we're going to play a game called Do You See What I See? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select problems where I see a tip or a trick that I've told you, or one that I want you to know that I haven't told you yet, and I'm going to give you about 45 seconds to solve the problem, and then at the end of that 45 seconds I'm going to solve the problem using the most efficient way that I can see to do it, and we'll see if you did it the same way or if your way was slower or if you didn't get to the correct answer, and then that way you'll be able to kind of see how I view the SAT math with calculator section as someone who scored perfectly on it twice, and you can kind of get that look at how I'm solving problems and compare it to how you're solving problems. So that way you can kind of see how you could be more efficient and do that. So we're just going to start with number 5 as a warm-up. So we're not going to do you see what I see with number 5. We're just going to warm up for a minute. So we see that we have lines L and M, that they are parallel to each other. We're also told that we have y is 20, z is 60. We're asked for the value of x. So we want to get this y right here, which we know it is. Okay, we know that that angle there is the same as this angle here, since we have parallel lines L and M. Thus, we know x plus y plus z equals 180. We do 180 minus 60, which is z, minus 20, which is y. That's going to leave us with 100 as x. Okay, so answer there will be B. So that's our warm-up. Now let's go ahead and get started with the do you see what I see. So the first question we're going to do is going to be question 10. Question 10 is paired with questions 9 through 11, but we don't need to do number 9 in order to do 10, so we're just going to go ahead and start with 10. So it says water pours into the glass slowly and at a constant rate. Which of the following graphs best illustrates the height of the water level in the glass as it fills? So I'll give you about 45 seconds to do this problem, and then I'll tell you what I see that helps me solve this fast. Okay, your 45 seconds is now up. So here's how you can solve this one really quickly. We know that water is pouring in at a constant rate, which means that it's pouring in at a constant change in volume. So you have a constant change in volume. We're asked which of the following graphs best illustrates the height of the water level in the glass as it fills. So when I look over at my picture of this glass, I see immediately that my volume changes with my height, right? As I go higher up, there's more volume to fill in that area that goes across it, right? We see that this volume is greater than at the bottom. Okay, so one thing that we know then is as we fill it, and if you just think about if you did this in real life with a cup that sides go out like that, right? We know that it's going to initially have a really quick rise in height, but that rise in height is going to slow down as you get higher. So our change in height is going to be really quick at first, but then it's going to slow down. You're going to have that smaller slope. So we see that that graph obviously matches graph C. So correct answer there will be C. So that's one where you can just use logic and reasoning from your everyday life to solve it. There are some problems like that on the SAT. There aren't necessarily a ton, but there are some, which is why I want to show that one there. Okay, the next problem we're going to use do you see what I see with is question 11. Okay, so question 11, I know for a fact that I did a tip on this video in the 14-day prep series, so hopefully you know what tip I'm talking about when you see this one. So it reads, Jenny has a pitcher that contains 1 gallon of water. How many times could Jenny completely fill the glass with 1 gallon of water? You're told that 1 gallon was 128 fluid ounces. One part you do need to know to answer that is how many ounces can the cup hold? Okay, so we'll go back here. You can see that the cup can hold 16 fluid ounces. So I'll write that down by that problem. We know that the cup can hold 16 fluid ounces. Now you can go ahead and solve for 11. So I'll give you 45 seconds to answer that starting now. Okay, your time is now up. So let's go ahead and show you how I would solve this one. So first thing that you want to understand is that you're filling it with 1 gallon of water. You know that 1 gallon of water is equal to 128 fluid ounces. Okay, so you automatically know then by canceling your units because you have 1 gallon and you're multiplying that by the fact that you have 128 fluid ounces per gallon. Your gallons cancel, you're left with your ounces. You know you have 128 ounces, and that is the trick here, is canceling units to make sure you're doing it correctly. Now you know you have 128 ounces that has to go in to your cup that can hold 16 ounces. So you do 128 over 16. I'll plug that in my calculator right now. And that is going to give you 8 as your answer. So 8 will be your answer for this problem. So that'll be B for number 11. So big thing there, canceling units. Okay, in this one there wasn't a ton of canceling units you had to do, but in others there'll be more. So hopefully you understood that canceling units was the tip you were looking for on that problem. Now let's go ahead and look for another problem. Question 12 is going to be the next problem we're going to do. Do you see what I see on? So I'll go ahead and give you about 45 seconds to run through problem 12. I know it seems like you should need more than that, but you actually don't, and you'll see why when I go through and answer it. So your 45 seconds to answer 12 starts now. Okay, your 45 seconds is now up. Now I'm going to show you how I can solve this one really quickly and how you can too. So one tip that I gave is as you read through these big word problems with inequalities like this, go ahead and write down your inequality as you go through or find which answers are wrong immediately, and then you can find your right answer. So let's go ahead and do that. We have Roberto as an insurance agent who sells two types of policies, a $50,000 policy and a $100,000 policy. Last month his goal was to sell at least 57 insurance policies. Well, he did not meet his goal. That means that he sold less than 57. So I can go get rid of any answer choice that says it was more. So I can get rid of B and I can get rid of D. Okay, now all I'm left with is finding if this is true, or I'm sorry, if he sold less than $3 million worth or more. The total value of the policies he sold was over $3 million. Okay, so then I know that my answer has to have the one that is over $300,000. Thus, my answer must be answer choice C. Okay, so that one right there with inequalities, as you read through the problem, make sure that you're going through, finding the information you need, getting rid of wrong answer choices as soon as possible, right? You saw as soon as I knew that I sold less than 57 in total, I got rid of all of those that said it was greater than 57. Okay, I got rid of B and D. Next thing that I saw is that I had to figure out if it was going to be greater than 100,000 or less than 100,000. I saw it had to be greater, or I'm sorry, greater or less than 3 million. I saw it had to be greater than 3 million, thus my answer was C. So key things with inequality problems like this, get rid of answer choices that are wrong as soon as you can. Make sure as you go through that you're coming up with the inequality yourself. So you could either be writing it down and then at the end find which one matches yours, or you can just get rid of wrong answer choices as you go and find which one is going to be correct. Either of those situations and strategies would work. So let's go ahead and find another one where we want to use a tip or trick. So 14, I just saw 14 right now, and I noticed that it is something I didn't give a tip or trick for, or actually I think I did, but either way, I want to cover it one more time. So actually, I'm just going to go through this one without doing a did you see what I see, and I just want to explain it. So which of the following is the value of x for which the expression negative 3 over x squared plus 3x minus 10 is undefined? If you have something like this, where it's going to be undefined is where your denominator equals 0. So you take x squared plus 3x minus 10, you'd set it equal to 0, and it's going to be undefined wherever this denominator equals 0. So what you're going to want to do then is you're going to want to factor this out. So you're going to have an x there, you're going to have an x here. You're looking for factors of negative 10 that are going to add to positive 3. Okay, so you know immediately that that's going to be plus 5 and minus 2. Okay, because that would give you plus 5x minus 2x, which would give you plus 3x, and then 5 times negative 2 would give you that negative 10. So thus, you go ahead and set those equal to 0. You're going to get x equals negative 5, and you're going to get x equals 2. You see that you do have 2 as an answer choice, so D will be your correct answer for 14. So big thing there, anytime that you're asked to find which value of x is an expression undefined, set the denominator equal to 0. Okay, so that's the big thing there I wanted to show you. All right, let's go ahead and find another problem that we can do the do you see what I see? Right away, I'm looking at 13, dealing with exponents. Okay, we talked about that in a tip and trick video, so I want to go ahead and do this one. So I'll go ahead and give you 45 seconds to find the answer for 13, starting now. Okay, your 45 seconds is now up. So to solve this one, we want to get a in terms of x. What that means, we want to get a equal to whatever x is. So we need a to the first power. So to get a to the first power, what we got to do is we got to raise all of this then to the power of -2. Because what that's going to do, since we were taking an exponent here and raising it to another exponent, we're going to multiply. So we're multiplying a negative by a negative, getting us a positive, and then we're multiplying that half by 2, getting it to +1. Thus, we will have a to the first power, which we know will just be a, is equal to x to the power of -2. Now, what is x to the power of -2? Obviously, that's not an answer choice we have in A through D, but it is because x to the power of -2 is the same as 1 over x squared, okay? Anytime we have that negative sign, that just means that we flip it, right? So we would just take that negative sign and we just turn it into 1 over and then x squared. That's how that works. So that's the tip and trick there. We talked about that in the first day when we talked about exponents, and obviously we talked about that in a tip and trick video as well, I do believe. So with that, let's go ahead and find another problem that we can use tips and tricks to solve. Okay, so let me just go down, we'll find one. All right, so we've got number of colds, we already talked about that one. All right, number 19 right off the bat, that's one that I'm looking at. Okay, so I talked about this in the tip and trick video as far as graphs. So let's go ahead and give you guys 45 seconds to solve this one. I'll zoom out so you can see all the graphs. The problem says the range of the polynomial function f. It looks like we lost it there a minute. Okay, the range of the polynomial function f is the set of all real numbers, or the set of real numbers less than or equal to 4 if the zeros of f are -3 and 1. Which of the following could be the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane? Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds on this one because it should be quick. Okay, your 30 seconds is now up. So let's go ahead and cover why the correct answer to number 19 is A. All right, so first thing that I see, I have the range. I'm going to highlight this. The range of the polynomial function f is the set of real numbers less than or equal to 4. Since its range is less than or equal to 4, the highest y value you can have is 4. So anything with a higher y value than 4, I can go ahead and get rid of. I see that I can get rid of c then and d then because they go above 4, right? We see that there. We can go ahead and get rid of c and d. Now we are between a and b. Next thing I see is I have the zeros of f are -3 and 1. So that means my x-intercepts are going to be -3 and 1. I see in answer choice A I have -3 and I have 1. In answer choice B I do not. Thus B is incorrect. A is my correct answer. Okay, so key things there. What was the tip that I talked about in this for this problem that is applicable to this problem? Well, that tip is going to be dealing with graphs in the xy plane, right? Anytime we have graphs, what we're going to do is we're going to use the information given to us to go ahead and get rid of graphs really quickly. So you saw I got rid of C and D because I knew that we couldn't go above 4. Then you saw I used my zeros to find my correct graph as well. Okay, so anytime you're dealing with a graph question, always be looking to get rid of wrong graphs right away. All right, let's go ahead and find another problem that would be good to talk about some tips and tricks and see if you can see what I'm seeing. Okay, let me go look for one. Let's see. All right, oh, this is a good one right here. I like number 23. I also like 24, so we're going to do both of them. We'll start with 23. All right, so 23. I'll go ahead and give you about 30 seconds to solve this one. It says the equation above models the number of members M of a gym T years after the gym opens. Of the following, which equation models the number of members of the gym Q quarters after the gym opens? Your time starts now. Okay, your 30 seconds is now up. So the key thing here is that T is in years, right? We've got our number of members. We see we have our initial number of members. We are growing at 2% a year, obviously, and we have T as our number of years. So if we're going to model it using quarters, what we have to do then is set it up so that we know there are 4 quarters in a year. Now, if there are 4 quarters in a year, what can we do here? Well, one strategy I would use here is I know that if I was to have 1 year, I'd have it raised to the power of 1 then, okay, since T represents years. Thus, if I was going to have 4 quarters in a year and I wanted it to be 1 year, I would have to have 4 quarters over 4, which I know is 1. Thus, my correct answer there is going to be answer choice A, okay, because in any other scenario, if I was to put 4 quarters in, I end up with a different answer than this equation up here, right? We see with B, I would end up with 1.02 raised to the 4 times 4, which would give me 16, so that's incorrect. Same thing with option C, same thing with and with D, we would end up with 1.082, and then obviously Q would be 4 quarters there. So once again, raising that to the fourth. So correct answer there is going to be A, right? If we're taking that time, which is 1 year, and we're now turning it to quarters, all we got to do then is switch it to quarters, which means it's got to be over 4 quarters on top, since there are 4 quarters in 1 year. Okay, so that one right there, not too difficult. Okay, 24. All right, so 24 is going to be a statistics question. So statistics questions, I believe I had a tip in here, which I talked about how you're going to find the answer to this one, but just in case I didn't, let's go and do this one. So I'll give you 30 seconds starting now. Okay, I think that was about 30 seconds. I lost track of time, but I think it was about 30 seconds. So 24, key things here. This is a statistics question. Statistics questions are important to have a good understanding of just how to analyze data. That's really the key to these ones. So let's go ahead and show you how I would approach this one. So I have, for the finale of a TV show, viewers could use either social media or a text message to vote for their favorite of 2 contestants. The contestant winning or receiving more than half the vote won. An estimated 10% of viewers voted. 30% of the votes were cast on social media. Contestant 2 earned 70% of the votes cast using social media and 40% cast using text message. Based on this information, what's an accurate conclusion? Okay, let's run through our answer choices. That's our only option here. We got to just go A through D. A, if all viewers had voted, contestant 2 would have won. No, that's not true, okay? Just because not all the viewers voted, that doesn't mean that the one who lost would now win, okay? Or the one that won would win. We don't know. Option B, viewers voting by social media were likely to be younger. Okay, once again, we can't make that statement. Data does not support it. Option C, if all viewers who had voted by social media instead of by text message, contestant 2 would have won. Here's the problem with that, is that the means by which they're voting doesn't have an impact on who they vote for. It's just the means that they're doing it for. So C is wrong, D must be my correct answer, and we see D is correct anyway because it says viewers voting by social media were more likely to prefer contestant 2 than those voting by text message, which we know is true because contestant 2 earned 70% of the votes cast using social media. So correct answer there is D. So key parts for statistics questions, always making sure you're checking your answer with the information contained with the statistics. Always make sure that your answer can be supported by the data. If it can't, then it's wrong. So those are the big things there. So just making sure you're drawing accurate conclusions from data. All right, let's go ahead and see if we have another problem where we can use a tip or trick or something that I think that would be helpful. All right, so 26, I see I have another statistics question. Let's go ahead and do this one as well, because I think this one, I know for a fact that this one's actually going to be something I do want to talk about because I've seen this problem before. So number 26, SAT practice test 8, I'll go ahead and give you 45 seconds for this one starting now. Okay, your 45 seconds is now up. So I'm really glad we're going to get to talk about 26 here because there are multiple things I want to talk about with it. So first off, let's just go ahead and show you what I see on this one that you should have seen as well. So to determine the mean number of children per household in the community, Tabitha surveyed 20 families at a playground. Right away, I'm thinking bias sample. How do I know it's a bias sample right away? Well, we're trying to determine the mean number of children in a household in a community, and we're doing this at a playground. Okay, problem here is people who are at a playground are likely to have more children than those who are not at a playground, right? If you have kids, you're more likely to bring them to a playground than people who don't have kids. So immediately biased sample size, I know that. Or I'm sorry, not biased sample size, a biased sample. Okay, and we'll talk about sample size here in a minute as well. So for the 20 families surveyed, the mean number of children found per household is 2.4. What must be true? I got to find something with a bias sample. Okay, so I go through. We have option A, mean number of children per household in the community is 2.4. No, because it's a bias sample. B, a determination about the mean number of children per household in the community should not be made because the sample size is too small. It's incorrect. I want to come back and talk about this in a minute here though. Option C, the sampling method is flawed and may produce a biased estimate of the mean number of children produced in household or children per household in the community. Yes, okay, it's biased, it's flawed because we're drawing from only the families at a playground which are more likely to have more children. D, the sampling method is not flawed. It is, so we can go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, I want to talk about sample size and sample size as an answer just overall in the SAT math section real quick. So one thing you're noticing right away is that they only surveyed 20 families here. Okay, and option C says that they can't make a determination because the sample size is too small. So I just want to point this out. As far as sample sizes being too small, I don't think I've ever seen that as a correct answer on the SAT math section, right? I've never really seen them talk about sample sizes just because, and I don't think that they ever would. It's possible that they would, but I don't think they ever would because as far as sample sizes, it could be up for debate between different people because some people think that you have to have a really, really large, some people think you have to have really, really small, and it would take a lot higher level math analysis than what the SAT generally tests in order to determine which sample size you need in order to make an accurate conclusion because it would involve a lot of other things. That's something they test more on AP stats, but I wouldn't really think they'd ever test you on sample sizes being too small or too large with the SAT math section. At least I have not seen it tested on the practice test from what I remember. So I just wanted to point that out with number 26 as well. So that takes us through the SAT math with calculator practice for today. Hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully these problems went well for you. Hopefully you got them all right. We're comfortable with them. If you didn't, that's okay. Hopefully you learned from your mistakes. Hopefully you saw what I was doing, kind of what I was pointing out as far as things to look for, and hopefully it was helpful. So as always, make sure to like, share, subscribe. If I'm doing any private SAT tutoring, private college admissions consulting I'm doing, college essay proofreading I'm doing, that'll be linked in the description. As always, make sure to have a great day.